In this lesson, we have Tim Fitzgerald teaching you about Wes Montgomery's approach. This was a great masterclass. We have a whole host of masterclasses with Tim in our Play Like Wes series that I know you guys are going to dig on octaves, on chord soloing, and we have more coming from Tim in the future. He's a great educator. He picks some great examples for you. So without further ado, here's Tim Fitzgerald.
And this is a really interesting part. This is going to be an E minor 7 arpeggio. And he's doing this great move where he plays this fifth move, kind of a la McCoy a little bit. I mean, I know McCoy is classic fourths, but he puts the fifths underneath and plays a beautiful 2-octave arpeggio. And then this line we'll talk about. This is so great. All right, so the chord hits on this particular line are just the fifths. He's playing. Oh, and if you don't know, the A sections of jingles involve 16 bars of 16 or 8 bars of E minor right up front. Then it goes to A minor, and then it goes 2/5 back to E minor. Those are what the A sections are. So Wes has these nice long swaths of E minor to play. So his arpeggio, and you might recognize this shape. Oh, actually, yes, it's a similar shape, but on a different set of strings. So E minor 7, the first thing he does is he's going to play an E minor 9 arpeggio. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So very natural. You might hear this on a record. You think, oh, well, I'm going to go here at the 7th fret. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And puts a little triplet in there. So it's an eighth note rest, and 1 and triplet, 1 and 2 triplet, 3. Puts a little grease on the last note. That's fine. That's great. That's a really solid way to play this arpeggio. It's in position. It reminds me a little bit of Gambale in some ways, or other master pickers with the straight downstrokes with the sweeps. Great. Keep that. If you're doing it that way, keep that as part of it. Here's how Wes does the same arpeggio. Instead of 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 all in position, he goes 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, stretched out. So let's talk about that. Yeah, absolutely. So on the D string, root and third of E minor, so E and G are both on the D string. Then he jumps to the next string for the note B, the 5th. Then the next string, the B string for the 7th, stays on the B string for the note F sharp, the 9th. So this is good. This is more Wes for a few reasons. One is that, look, remember what we're talking about with our downstrokes. Down, down. These are 3. If you want, I'm not sure on this one if Wes picks that. Depends on his on the tempo. I think he's going 1 pick with the thumb, getting the 2 notes. That's one way to execute this. Whereas with, well, let's see. And then jumps on the same. Now, if you notice, 3 fingers. With this position, I think you probably need to use 4 fingers, which there's nothing wrong with that. Again, look at all the masterful players who play with 4 fingers. You know, there's so many. But for the Wes sound, 3 and 2. Now, he probably even, see, could he do this with 2? Possibly, depending on the tempo, he might even be able to play with 2. But I think in this situation, in this particular, he's playing with 3. So right there, that's a nice way to play this arpeggio. That's something to practice. That's a shape that's very movable. If you're playing impressions, right there, boom, you've got it. You've got it right there. That's right there. You know, but jingles. Now Wes doesn't stop there. This is really nice. He ties it right to another arpeggio up an octave, and he does the same thing. It's going to be after the 9th. He goes root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. And this entire arpeggio is on the top 2 strings. So the second part of the arpeggio is, oh, I did my pinky there, right? So the arpeggio from down low, man, it's so beautiful, I think. So root 3, 5, 7, 9, root 3, 5, 7, 9 with a triplet. 1. Notice it's kind of diagonal from this note E to this note. There's one, I shouldn't say kind of diagonal, it's definitely diagonal, but it's one angle. And then once he gets up here, it's even a steeper angle. And that's something I was very surprised when I was transcribing Wes, how often he ran on the B string if he wanted. If he was hearing that, he would be climbing, but he wanted to go higher. He'd just run up some notes in the B string. Like, no kidding, I never knew. Yeah, I mean, there are so many examples. So there it is. There's the arpeggio. These arpeggios can be done with or without the triplet. For practicing them, I like to play them without the arpeggio. I would recommend that. Just make it so you could go like 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. You know what I mean? It simplifies a little bit, makes it a little more solid as you're learning the shapes. But then if sort of a little extra grease on there, a little extra juice would be the triplet. Even sweeter. All right, so that's the arpeggio part. That's the first part of the arpeggio. E minor, that's an E minor 9 arpeggio in 2 octaves, a la Wes. But there's another part to this line. There's the answer. What was it now? Oh, that's so good. Is that what he does? That is. That's it. Oh, I love that so much. So let's just talk about that briefly, because we can't let this beautiful language slip by. You would think maybe a normal player might go up a minor 7 arpeggio and go down an arpeggio. You know, that would sound fine. That's kind of how people generally play, but not Wes. Wes likes to really mix it up at all times. He's following his ear, ideas are flowing out. So he flows up the minor 7 arpeggio, but goes down. I don't know if everyone can hear with notes. This is a C sharp. So if you were to hear this is all on the top string, E, C sharp, and A, does anyone know what triad that is? What chord is he outlining on the way down? Yes, I think you got it. It's A7. He's outlining A7 on the way down. So he starts going from the 9th of E minor. Whoops. What are we doing again? That's it. Up. So it's going down A7. And then this little move also fits A13. It's the 13th of A, or the 6th to the 5th, and then it goes C sharp to B, which sounds beautiful, and A7. Now, you easily could interpret that as E minor 6. That's also E minor 6. Remember, and we're getting into more Barry Harris stuff, but there's a very tight and important relationship between E minor 7 and A7. Every minor 7 chord has the dominant that goes with it, with a 2-5 relationship. When I studied with Barry, he wouldn't say, hey, it's E minor to A7. He would just say it's A7. You know, to him, it's same for blowing. Obviously, when he's chording, he'd chord E minor to A7. But when it comes to blowing, it's all A7. That's one good way to look at it. We know the master, Pat Martino, tended to take any dominant and think about it as the minor. Pat Martino sees the A7. Hey, it's an E minor, actually, for him. Great. For us, listening to all the masters, I think it's really great to sometimes think about it as E minor 7, sometimes think about it as E minor 6, sometimes think about it as A7. Remember, when you're playing a tune like Jingles, it's 8 bars it's AABA, and you've got 8 bars of E minor every A section. So you've got you've got 3 long 8-bar phrases to work on E minor. And how many courses are you going to take? 2, 3 when you're soloing, when you're practicing 100, we just take so many courses. It's great to come at the same chord different ways on different courses. That keeps it interesting to the listener, it keeps it to your bandmates, keeps it to yourself. There's no law that says, hey, here's the chord, think of it this way only. As a matter of fact, when people do that, it sounds a little staid. If I'm using that word correctly, S-T-A-I-D. But just like S-T-A, yeah, it's just a little too in the box. That said, don't think when you're first learning something, well, I have to throw out 100 different approaches. No, it's good to pick one approach and play it. Trust me, that's great. And if you figure out one way to go through a tune, this works, love it. I support that 100%. Then what? Well, let's go at it a different way. Hey, I notice you're thinking about this as E minor 7 every time and doing your E minor 7 language. How about one of these A sections? Why don't you think about it as A7? Whoa, okay. You're going to bring up totally different colors, but it's still going to fit. And in this case, getting back to Wes, because forgive me, I sometimes go a little far afield, but getting back to Wes, here's Wes mixing it right away, going up E minor 7 arpeggio, and coming down A13. I mean, to me, that's just so beautiful. And then arpeggio-wise, top 3 notes of the arpeggio, 1 string coming down. And then this is I would say this is more in position, but still it's kind of 2 positions because he's like shifting a little bit lower because he's using only the 2 or the 3 fingers. So the whole arpeggio. Oh, I love that so much. E minor 7. Again, what to do with this? My opinion, play it with Wes. Just play it with Wes. I love the slow downer. I love transcribe with the, I don't know if you know that one. It's on the laptop only for me at least, and it's got transcribe with the exclamation point. And it just, you can see the waveform and put a nice little loop, and you can slow it down. And just playing it over and over with him sort of gets it in your hands and your ears. Then, as we say, okay, well, let's look at what's happening here. Oh, E minor to A7. Well, where else can I use that? Well, you're playing impressions. That means I've got D minor 7. Why don't I bring in some G7 material? Now, what is G7 material? That's a whole other thing, and that's maybe hopefully something we can talk about soon. Like how about tons of bebop language on dominant chords? Because if you have tons of bebop language on dominant chords, that means you have tons of bebop language on minor chords as well. It also means you have tons of language on half diminished chords. But that's, these are all, it just depends that we're just going to change the root around and we get all this language. Again, using as much as you can, take the language that you're learning and use it as many places as you can. If you like it. If you don't like the language, don't do it. But I was like, pick the things that really talk to you and keep using them. Okay, so that's jingles. Let's take a look at some arpeggios from, unless there's questions on jingle, let's take some language from Twisted Blues from the same concert.
If you guys want to get access to all of Tim's classes, just use his link below for a 7-day free trial to Chase's Guitar Academy, and you'll get access to everything there.